we'll have to see. It could be, there's a million people with a million predictions about this type of stuff, and nobody knows. Um, but that's kind of how I'm planning for it. Like with us being a venture capital fund, when we're investing in companies, we're looking at companies that are building things that help people use Bitcoin as a store of value today, because we view that as just the most important thing to be building for right now. Like if you're building a company that's designed around Bitcoin being used as a medium of exchange, it's going to be a lot harder for you to find users, and that's you might be putting the cart before the horse in terms of this is just too early. There's a lot of good ideas out there, and one of the big problems is that a lot of times people are too early with good ideas. It just wasn't the right time in the market. And so like when we think about it in terms of like our fund, we're thinking about it on like a 5 to 10 year time horizon for a lot of the store value adoption happening, and what types of companies are going to benefit from that is companies that allow you to buy Bitcoin, allow you to hold Bitcoin, allow you to take loans out against Bitcoin, allow you to do international payments, all these different types of things.
Super interesting. What is actually, I think I haven't the second podcast, and I haven't really asked you about the venture capital fund. What are you guys doing, and like what are you kind of focusing on? I mean, we had it in the beginning, I think a little bit.
Yeah, like so our big mandate is focusing on Bitcoin adoption. And like we don't think we're like smarter than the market on anything. We're waiting to see what emerges related to all the different opportunities. But like, what's the North Star that we guide ourselves by? Is this company idea, software protocol, is this forwarding Bitcoin adoption in some sort of way? And our thesis is that there's going to be very high return ways of getting exposure to that. So like a really good example of this would be a company that's getting into lending. Um, the value of a lending company where they're earning fees based off of giving people loans, and there's this perennial demand for people that want to take out loans against Bitcoin because they don't want to sell their Bitcoin. They would much rather say, okay, I'll pay a smaller rate of interest in the near term, and then I get to keep my exposure to the upside over the long term. Because Bitcoin's such a high appreciating asset, and because we have a massive global cult following of hodlers, there's a lot of loans that people want to take out against it so they don't have to sell it. So we have this market that's already highly attuned towards doing that. And what makes their lending business grow? Well, the value of the asset they're lending against, the collateral, grows. So as the price of Bitcoin goes up, the value of the assets any sort of lending business is dealing with goes up. Its market just starts to grow. And then we also view that the percentage of lending in the market is a lot smaller than what it'll be naturally over the long term. In that banking report I mentioned, we had some numbers to kind of show what that could look like. And so we think also lending is just going to expand more as a percentage of the total amount of Bitcoin that exists. And that market is just very infant right now. So like not only are you growing with Bitcoin, but you're growing with the size of the loan market as well as it grows in proportion to Bitcoin. And then you can earn fees not just from, issuing loans, but you can earn fees from, the second it gets called. So even during a time when Bitcoin is not performing well, like a lending business is earning a lot of fees from loans getting called in, and then they're getting the collateral too. So like there's businesses like that can do very, very well. And, it's our job as like investors to look at these things and make the right decisions, and on a portfolio wide basis, how well can some of these things do? But we're really looking for that. We're like, it's kind of akin to like with a Bitcoin treasury company when they say it's like a high beta version on Bitcoin. It's like we're looking at that, but in financial theory, the private companies we're getting exposure to that we're looking at in terms of being like a high beta play on Bitcoin. Another big advantage you have with dealing in private markets versus public, which is like where Bitcoin treasury companies trade, is that in private markets, in financial theory, it's called an illiquidity premium, is one of the things that you're getting compensated for. So because a private market is an equity ownership in some sort of company, but there isn't an exchange to go sell it on, it's not as liquid. There's no liquid market. And the reason for that is that, we have certain standards that a company needs to be this big, and it needs to meet these types of, financial metrics and abide by these rules and regulations in order to list on a public stock exchange. Companies that are much earlier or choose to remain private, they don't have those benefits, but they get to do a lot more of what they want to do, and they don't have to abide by these regulations. So in startup land, because it's very early and because they're in private markets, there's a premium that you get because there's a lot more inefficiency happening in the private market. So a lot of the value that you can find, and one of my, basically since I've been in college and I studied finance, was that I always wanted to work in private markets because that's where the majority of the inefficiency lies, which means that's where you have the best chance of getting an advantage or having some sort of alpha that you can find. And a lot of that really happens through network, like particularly in our world, it's knowing a lot of different people, knowing the right companies to talk to, things kind of like that. So like it's like a high beta play on Bitcoin and has a bit of an illiquidity premium. And like that's kind of the thesis that we're working towards on the fund.
Love that. That's really interesting because like we I think a lot about the amazing time that we are currently witnessing with Bitcoin. I think it's it's a massive gift that we kind of lived through this Bitcoin evolution so early on. That kind of Bitcoin happened within our lifetime, especially for everyone that is now like under 50 years old, or like maybe like under 50, like whatever the thing is. You will see you will see the pre-Bitcoin evolution and you see the Bitcoin evolution, and you kind of see how this all plays out in the very early stages. And I don't know about you, but like I feel like in hundreds of years, like they look back at like this time frame of like 2009 to like
Mm-hmm.
2050 of like being um extremely revolutionary when it comes to finances and money in general because of Bitcoin. And I just feel so grateful and lucky to be in this time frame and to being able to document that and being able like have companies in there and like being kind of an active participant in there. It's like everything that we are doing in Bitcoin is like super exciting because of that. Like, oh shit, like people will look back as like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, there's like was this one podcast, like there's this thing, there's like this company. Like I'm just super excited about that frame.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. It's like I think when I got involved in this industry, I just felt like it was like built for me. It was built around all of my natural interests and everything that I was guided towards. And yeah, I have to like it. Well, it's funny because what I realize now, and the best way that like you start to forget about it, because I've been working in the industry for about 5 years now, and you start to forget just how lucky you are. Like I get to wake up and what when I wrote my book, it was like the conclusion I came to is what's the biggest problem for Bitcoin? It's like it needs more infrastructure built around it so that it can expand more into becoming not just a store of value that people hold through some sort of like ETF account, but it's something that can be used more as money. And that's the biggest thing that will unlock the market size of Bitcoin over time. Without that infrastructure, we're not going to unlock that market size. So I was like, what's the biggest problem to make it global money? And the big vision is that Bitcoin needs to become the first neutral monetary asset in history for being used globally. And like the only way we achieve that is with infrastructure. And I'm like, okay, well, cool. Well, I get to work on trying to solve the biggest problem that I view in the world right now, because I think that if we achieve this vision, if we create a neutral monetary system, it's going to change how society is structured. It's going to mean that governments have to adhere to an austerity. They're going to have to adhere to a standard of fixed monetary behavior. And that's going to change their ability to finance things that people do not want them to finance. And that's going to change how much war is happening in the world. And it's going to change the incentives of global politics. And like we can't even comprehend exactly, how utopian this vision might become, but it's the most exciting thing I can possibly imagine. It's also something that everything I'd learned about and thought about before getting into the industry was aligned with, and that's why I was able to get Bitcoin because of that. And then it's like, yeah, I get a my job is a dream job. I get to work on these Bitcoin companies all day, and it's most apparent to me when I talk to people who either like work in the area that I used to work in or have some sort of like other corporate job in professional services. And I'm just like, yeah, I can't even imagine doing that anymore. My life's just too good doing all this Bitcoin stuff.
I was before Bitcoin, I was an account manager, which basically meant I made Excel sheets and PowerPoint presentation for a living, and it was so it was not bad. Like I loved my coworkers, the company was cool, but honestly, it was just like not not creative enough and not exciting enough. The whole industry also like I'm very happy to do this now. I have one question for each and every one of my returning guests, and the question is, what have you learned outside of Bitcoin since your last appearance?
I went down a whole health rabbit hole this year. I learned about hormones and testosterone, and basically, and it's funny because I think this is all really obvious to people in Bitcoin because so many of them are down this rabbit hole. It's kind of stuff that I would normally like ignore as long as I feel good. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I learned about how screwed up food is, and it's actually like really hard to eat food that is healthy. You have to really go out of your way to not screw your system up. And I turned 30 a couple years ago, and I think ever since that point, it's like you can get away with all these bad habits in your 20s, but get into your 30s, you can't get away with it. It starts to impact your health more, and it was like making me like feel tired, and I wasn't sleeping right, and there was like something wrong with me. And yeah, I went down this whole health rabbit hole, and I figured out like, oh, I actually need to eat a balanced diet. And I balanced the diet out, and it was just crazy how night and day it's like changed how I feel, like, you know, my ability to focus, and I'm so high energy, and I don't get tired in the afternoons anymore just from like learning how to focus on my health in the right ways. So that was super cool. That was a period of like 3 months. This is Adam behind us. He had to listen to me talk about my testosterone to people for like 3 months while I was learning about all this stuff. So he knows the drill as well.
Yeah, like people closest to you always get exposed early to the rabbit holes, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching this video. This was only a snippet of the podcast. And if you want to watch the full episode and get all of the context of this episode, you can click right here or here. Oh, maybe also here.